Thank you so much for covering this because we can't cover it in Canada. What they've done is they had a young girl totally brainwashed in school that she can be gender fluid. Then we had uh, then we had teachers who changed her name without informing the teachers, so without informing the parents. So the parents didn't know until the yearbook came out that their daughter had changed her name. And then they found out, okay, she's having all of these problems. There had been some other, concerns for her, growing up, being a teenager, the parents going through a divorce, things like that. So all of a sudden they say, we got to take her to a doctor. This doctor says, oh yeah, you are definitely transgender. Now, this young lady had already had a crush on two male teachers. She kind of had a thing. So she had the heterosexual tendencies. So this Dr. Frankenstein tells this young girl that you are transgender and sends her off to our British Columbia Children's Hospital. At British Columbia Children's Hospital, she gets a 2-hour visit. At the end of the 2-hour visit, this doctor decides, oh, we're just going to offer her testosterone on the very first visit. How much do you know about a child on the very first visit?
This tyranny that we're seeing in America with heroes like Roger Stone and General Flynn being oppressed by these deep state tyrants, even though theoretically we have the White House, the deep state is so powerful, it just doesn't let go. But imagine if you lived in Canada and you had a lunatic like Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren as your president. That's what they've got in Canada right now. Canada is becoming a tyranny. And this segment and the next segment, I'd like to introduce somebody to you and then also introduce a case to you, which sounds unbelievably Orwellian because, like Roger Stone, the principals involved are gagged by the court. They can be sent to jail for discussing this story. It's about a father whose young daughter was brainwashed by these, crazy LGBTQ radicals into thinking momentarily she's a boy, and then immediately injected with massive doses of testosterone to the point where this child grew a beard and has a permanently deepened voice and has been sterilized. So there's the journalist that's covering this story who can't even talk about it in Canada, can't write about it in Canada, can't link videos that we can see on YouTube, can't be seen in Canada. Her name is Laura Lynn Thompson, and I'd like to bring her on, and she can actually describe what's going on with this case. If Laura's there, come on, Laura, come on in.
You bet. You bet. Can you hear me, Matt?
Yes.
You hear me? Okay, great. Thank you so much for covering this because we can't cover it in Canada. What they've done is they had a young girl totally brainwashed in school that she can be gender fluid. Then we had teachers who changed her name without informing the teachers, so without informing the parents. So the parents didn't know until the yearbook came out that their daughter had changed her name. And then they found out, okay, she's having all of these problems. There had been some other, concerns for her, growing up, being a teenager, the parents going through a divorce, things like that. So all of a sudden they say, we got to take her to a doctor. This doctor says, oh yeah, you are definitely transgender. Now, this young lady had already had a crush on two male teachers. She kind of had a thing. So she had the heterosexual tendencies. So this Dr. Frankenstein tells this young girl that you are transgender and sends her off to our British Columbia Children's Hospital. At British Columbia Children's Hospital, she gets a 2-hour visit. At the end of the 2-hour visit, this doctor decides, oh, we're just going to offer her testosterone on the very first visit. How much do you know about a child on the very first visit? And by the way, the previous doctor who sent her there said, you know what? She had heterosexual tendencies, but the thing is she's gay. So we're going to turn her into a boy, and then we're going to, send her off as a male into her, into her future life. So this is what happened. Then the father, his heart was broken. When you have a child, you agree to something. You agree to protect that child till the end of days. And this father's heart was broken. He started fighting it in the courts. Do you know what the courts did? First of all, they assigned a lesbian lawyer named Barbara Finley. She calls herself this. She calls herself a fat, ugly lesbian lawyer. That's her words for herself. And this lesbian lawyer assumes the case for this young girl. And she basically has taken mind control, I would say, and has propelled this case and has acted on her behalf. They then got a activist judge who is an LGBTQ activist judge, Justice Mazzari and Justice Bowden. Both of them put orders in place that this father could not speak publicly or, get this, Matt, not even privately, without threat of being arrested without warrant. There would be an arrest without warrant if he spoke even privately about this situation. Not only that, he was ordered that if he ever refers to his daughter as a daughter and not a son, and not by male pronouns, he is guilty of family violence. This is a unbelievable situation where the state has drugged and heading towards mutilation of this young girl. Her voice is changing. She's growing a beard. She's sterile.
How old is she?
She's 15 now. 15. We don't know anything at 15. 15.
15 and sterilized by the state.
And sterilized by the state. And our Canadian justice system, our medical professions have committed malpractice, in my opinion. Our educational systems have conspired for parental alienation, all of it. So the father had to go very silent. I'm not even allowed to say his name. I'm not allowed to say a father's name. I'm not allowed.
Laura, we're going to be going to a break, and we'll come back in a few minutes and pick this story back up. But this is beyond belief. Do people remember when healthy people were lobotomized? It's the same thing. We'll be back in a minute. All right, we're back with Laura Lynn Thompson. She actually worked for the 700 Club of Canada until she was hounded off of the air, as an Islamophobe. No, excuse me. Another phobe? I guess a trans LGBTQ-ophobe.
Yeah.
A traditional woman.
Yeah. I stood against, here in British Columbia, we have dozens and dozens and dozens of transgender indoctrination books from kindergarten to grade 5. Okay, then it gets worse from grade 5 on. And so I started saying, listen, do anything you want when you're an adult. You want to cut your schlong off, and you want to have mutilating surgery, remove healthy breasts. That's your business when you're an adult. It's Canada, fly your flag. But children are sacred. Children are precious. And so I began to fight against the indoctrination of children. And so I was targeted heavily, contacting the CRTC in Canada, the governing body of media, and asking that I would be removed and never be allowed to speak. I've been called every name in the book, and you know what? It really doesn't matter. So now I'm standing for the kids, and I'm standing against the establishment and these doctors that are transitioning kids without even a thought of it. We have a doctor in this case that is transitioning 500 ministry, these are foster kids, Ministry of Children and Family kids, 500 of them. This is a 7-point-something% of all Ministry of Children and Family kids. This is huge. This is sinister. It's evil. And we've really had enough. And so in Canada, we are declaring war on this. And in this one situation, we stand with this father. We stand with a father who says, how can you transition my daughter? She can't get a tattoo without my permission. She can't drink a glass of wine. She can't get married. She can't drive. How is she making the decision to change to a completely different sex? And how is that okay? And so we stand with him. So when he began speaking, he had a publication ban and he broke his silence. We have decided to stand with him. And so I did an interview with him, and so did a fellow named Frank Vaughn. And they told me to take my video down, and I did not comply. I was hauled into court. Short notice leave. I was sent one email, be at court. So I did do that, and the judge said that you have to take it down. By this time, we found out that, the Federalist and Mass Resistance and places like this, Rare, sites from the U.S. and from Australia and Germany are getting this video. This story's going wild. And so I didn't need to keep my videos up. So I said, I'll take them down. So, but when I didn't take them down fast enough after I left court, it took me a few days because, you know, you're busy and you got a lot of things to do. When I didn't take it down fast enough, they sent police to my home. So I wasn't home. Then the police called me. Can you meet us at the police station? So I had to go and meet at the police station, upon which the police actually told me the names, the two names that this daughter has gone by, which I did not previously know the names because the father was very protective of his daughter. And so I didn't know the names. And so who told them the names? This lesbian lawyer, Barbara Finley, who has been, you know, defending this young lady and indoctrinating her further and activating. This girl has become the activist pawn. And we're sick of it. If that had happened to any one of us, we would stand. And so I have to go back to court on March 9th to defend whether I'm in non-compliance. Perhaps I'm in non-compliance today. But here's the thing. Once in a while, you get to a place in life where you must speak. If you do not speak, then you are complicit to the evil going on in the land.
Silence is consent.
And that's where I'm at.
You know,
that's right.
Know, this I had made a comparison already in my mind of this evil to something that had happened, you know, a century ago, up through World War II into the 50s, where there was a you know, younger people may not be familiar with this, a quote unquote surgical procedure called lobotomy, where difficult or quote unquote mentally deficient people, schizophrenic people, they put a wire in through the corner of the eye and drug it around your frontal cortex until you became a vegetable. This actually happened to one of the Kennedys, Rosemary Kennedy, beautiful young girl. She had a difficult birth, and she wasn't going to go to college, you could say, and she was sort of embarrassing to her family. So the Kennedy patriarchs, Joe Kennedy, had her lobotomized, turned us into somebody who didn't know what day it was, barely knew her name. And this was at the time considered science, and it was done to thousands of people. Other people were forcibly sterilized. There were judges that said, you know, 100 years of idiots is enough. You know, or 4 generations of idiots is enough, and just sterilized people deemed mentally deficient. And up in Canada and in Australia, we're still, I mean, you're still working through this whole process of what was done to the Aboriginal kids who were drug away from their families and put into, you know, basically westernizing state, you know, brainwashing centers, you could call it, for their own good. At the time, that was considered a great idea to westernize, you know, the Canadian Aboriginal kids, the first Canadians. That's now considered a crisis, a disaster, a horrible stain on Canadian history. And we need to do that with this trans movement, these LGBTQ radical ghouls. They can brainwash a child to the point where they can just momentarily make a decision to step through a trap door and start taking testosterone. This is not changing a girl into a boy. It's mutilating and sterilizing a girl. She'll always be a girl, and she's now going to be mutilated, sterilized.
Yes, and it's affecting, you know, sexual activity for the rest of their lives. It's affecting their identity for the rest of their lives. And this is all being done without parental consent. We have a 4,500% global increase in referrals to gender clinics. Hello. Something is wrong. And it used to be, you know, when you and I were young, that there was goth kids and there was punk rockers, you know, and you could kind of get over that phase and take the earrings out of your nose and all that. And, you know, you get back to being an adult. In this phase, in this social contagion, a child is forever devastated. And so while this ghoulish doctor is telling parents, hey, if you're not getting your drugs fast enough, just, you know, say the suicide word. If you say suicide, oh, everyone's going to move for you. But here they are moving a young girl into a position where in just a couple years, she might go, you know what, that was a really dumb phase. I don't know what I was thinking. Now my voice is deep. I still got a partial girl's body, but I have a beard. Oh my gosh. That's where we face suicide.
I hope that they turn around. I hope that these victims, because that's what they are, they're child victims, I hope they turn around and sue them and also sue the state for actually fronting for this.
Exactly,
Laura,
Matt.
we've only got about a minute left, but we're going to follow this up, and because you have a court date, and just the fact
March
that this
9th.
video is being made, March 9th, just the fact that this video is being made and shared and will be spread around in Canada, our good friend in Ottawa and others, you could be in trouble for that.
Yeah.
I mean, this is purely
Orwellian. But this story has to be told. It has to be told, Matt, and I thank you for telling it. We have got to get the word out. Stop mutilating our kids. We are not going to be silent any longer. And your link to the residential schools was a good link. And now the residential schools are taking millions of dollars from the government, and this is going to happen in this case as well.
And I think that it's almost more evil. How can you could say teaching kids English and taking them out of these, fairly hopeless Inuit villages where there was nothing to do, and at least giving them an education, there was some benefit. And then as adults, if they wanted to go back to the Aboriginal ways, fine. But in this case, the children are permanently mutilated and sterilized.
Absolutely. Thank you for pointing it out. Yes, we have to get the word out. Thank you.
We're going to have you back on again until this entire case is resolved. So we're going to a break now. And thank you, Laura. And we'll see you again as the case follows out. And when we come back, I'm going to talk about the COVID-19 outbreak. What else? And that'll take us through the hour.